everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dance Talk Realness, a podcast where we discuss all nuances concerning education and dance, because a dance experience is an experience worth talking about. I'm your host, Truly B, and my awesome co-host, Daryl P. And today we are joined by our wonderful guest, Mr. Carl Liggins. Hello, sir. How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
You can make me so goddamn sick. Before we jump into everything today.
What did I do?
Today's quote, and thank you, Carl, for providing our quote for the day, is from Charles Bukowski. Praying over that last name, y'all. Thoughts and prayers up. The problem with the world is that the intelligent people are full of doubts, while the stupid ones are full of confidence. Facts.
Yes.
All right, so.
Our country is run by said people.
Facts. Mm-hmm. Travesty, tragedy, all of these words apply.
All of it.
So, everyone who watches knows, if you don't, I don't know how, that Daryl and I are both dance educators, dance performers, dance creators. Our awesome guest today is none of the things. So, I love it.
I don't even have rhythm.
I need your melanin to like kick in and like assist with that. No, it don't.
I can notice it in other people. I just can't, You
can't replicate it yourself.
Right.
Oh, precious Leo.
I could be like, oh, she was off beat, but it's like I couldn't.
You can't do it. Okay. Well, it'd be like that sometimes. It's not my testimony, but maybe I don't understand, but it's fine. I'm only judging you a little bit.
Oh, that's okay. I judge myself all the time. It's amazing the stuff I judge myself on.
That is a whole separate conversation because I am aware.
It's like you ain't get that corner of the grilled cheese as golden brown as the other side. You're just worthless.
I'm not doing this with you. So Daryl and I definitely wanted to have you on because we do value having conversation with people who are not in our field. I don't think that we fall into the trap of always speaking from a place of, well, everyone knows what we're talking about, but that potential I think is there. And so it is helpful sometimes to just kind of have a check back in of like, oh, okay, well, this is a question. And if I'm just talking to Daryl about it, this is how I would answer. But if I'm legitimately trying to make sure that this is information that can be a little bit more wider reaching, be it through this platform or even just in teaching, then it is helppful to have more dialogue with people who are outside of the field. So here you are, but I don't even know what we're talking about, y'all. So, because I'll be forgetting. I know we just had this conversation. I would say I'm sorry, but it's a whole lie. I don't.
Sorry.
And this is the realness part of Dance Talk Realness, because we're not going to edit this, and we know this now. It's fine. It's fine.
So I guess one question, I can't remember if I wanted you guys to talk about this before, was as kind of, I guess, as you just said, you having a conversation with him. Like what are some of the things, if you're having a general conversation about dance and there is somebody who normally isn't in that field, what are some of the things that you talk about with him that you're surprised that other people do know what you're talking about? Like maybe different techniques or different forms that you're supposed to have, or just common practices or what have you.
That I'm surprised that they do know what I'm talking about. Technique. Mm-hmm. That one is always surprising. In my experience, a lot of people, example, they'll see like the dancer can get their leg like all the way up to their head. And it's like, oh my God, they're an amazing dancer. And I'm like, that support leg is not turned out. Like that foot is not fully pointed. Like there's so many, like clearly they're not holding their core. Like there's just clearly a lot of like technical aspects to getting the body into that position that I'm like, they did not do that. They just flung that thing up there. So when someone who I know they don't necessarily have that background, that they can take that step back and say, okay, yeah, that's cool. But I noticed that, that bottom leg was kind of weird. it was not placed correctly, or something was going on with the arms that I don't think that was right. And it's like, oh, so you were like actually looking at this and not just looking at it. To me, it's looking at it in the sense of entertainment when you don't look at it more critically. Which I don't know if this is a good or bad thing necessarily. I'm always critiquing. Like, I can be at the best show possible. I can be watching Ailey, magnificent every time, but there's always a part of me that, as a teacher, I'm like, okay, well, this is the mechanics of this. So not even necessarily a critique, but okay, I can't just watch a performance and not start breaking things down. Like, okay, if I were going to teach them this portion of the choreography, what would I need to do? Okay, well, this is what it looks like is happening. How do I break that down? Okay, now how do I break it down further to make sure that I can really get them to understand it and be able to do it correctly? Or if I have them watching said footage, how do I bring them into the conversation in such a way that as they move forward and watch other things, they know what to start looking for, and that they're able to have more dialogue around the movement.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too. Like, it's the, I think as dancers and as educators, I think we're constantly evaluating the process. So like, not even like like wanting to give a critique, but curious of the process of what's happening. And so, you know, I guess it could be critiquing. It could be critiquing the process. It could be wanting to give feedback about the process when you're watching something. I think I'm always shocked that, like, whenever you said technique, truly, it almost made me think of every time I think I've ran into someone and I tell them that I'm a dancer, they always want to be like, they want to do a plie. It's a terrible plie, but they're just like, oh, like plie, and it's like, you know, that's a squat, and
yeah, oh Jesus,
that's what it is.
Oh, baby,
I had an ex that would always would want to do a pirouette. It was bad, but like, it's just funny how people like to throw in like what they've seen or what they know about dance whenever they hear people talking about it or hear people discuss it. I think if we were talking about it, I feel like there would be someone, if they did not know dance, would do one of the things that we discussed. Like, they would like, look what I can do. Kind of thing.
And I that by far is one of the most annoying things ever. Because like really, there was another way to go into this conversation with me than to give me this demo that, number one,
it
is rough. And then it's like, one of my things that I say it to people, I try to say it nicely sometimes, not all the time, but I'm like, I'm off the clock. I'm not the okay, I understand there are dancers who enjoy consuming dance nonstop. I have moments of it, but sometimes I'm like, you know, I'm tapped out for the day. I have talked, I have done. Mm-hmm. I'm good. Like, I don't want to discuss this anymore. We'll try it again tomorrow. And that doesn't work for some people. And I feel like that's not with every field. Like, I don't know that, well, you know, I don't know. I let me ask an electrician if they always get questions on that, like when they tell people. Because I don't know. I'm assuming no, though.
The only thing I can think of that probably some people who can relate, probably somebody like Kev in them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because they're comedians. People always want to be like,
tell a joke,
or, you know, say so, it's just like, hey, you do this thing that you get paid for. I know nobody's paying you right now, but here, still do that thing that you would normally do when you're getting paid for me right now, because I'm asking
free.
You
For all the free. And
it's like, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm off the clock. No, I think that is a fair comparison.
Yeah.
And I guess there is, and you know what? Anyone who performs, unless maybe musicians,
because they just don't have their instrument. Like,
yeah, but I bet you that's the only reason why.
Yeah.
Because let you be walking with an instrument on you, somebody's gonna ask.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when the classic thing, we're all black. The black mama thing, baby. Go ahead, show them that thing that you do. Go ahead, play the thing. It's like I don't have
Go dance for it. Go show them that little dance you do.
Go ahead, play that piano. This is not really the type of this is a Casio keyboard. It's not the same.
Right.
Go play something. Go ahead, play something like you do at church.
Like it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I can't fathom that happening to anyone else. Like, but there's that disconnect that you brought up, Carl, that the more that I've stepped out into the realm of freelancing, the more I see it. That idea of, hey, do this thing for me that you normally get paid for. However, I just want you to show me. It's like, I get paid for that. Is this a consultation? Because I get paid for that too.
Prove to me that you know what you're doing. It's just like you wouldn't understand it if I didn't.
Okay. Real talk on that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I legitimately only have degrees in this. I've only done this as a career. Like, I think I know what I'm doing. And if you really don't have faith in it, don't hire me.
Right.
I'm
good.
That is the crazy thing about the world that we live in. Whether it be just side note, the whole craze right now with the whole Cardi B Meg Thee Stallion video and people being upset about it. It's just like, you could feel free just not to listen to it. You don't have to listen to it. I don't. If they hadn't talked about it on Kev's thing and brought it up, I wouldn't have bothered. I don't listen to Cardi B. I don't listen to the radio. So there's no way that I would have seen it unless I actively went to see it.
Yeah.
You know, they don't play music videos on BET or MTV anymore like that. So you have to actively go and search for certain media. And so for a lot of things, it's like, if you don't like it, for people who complain about not, having to wear masks in the store, you can feel free just not to go to that store. You can have the stuff delivered to you. You don't have to do this thing. If they have such a question about your credentials, like you said, you just don't. It's like, okay, well, I can do this. Well, I don't believe you. Okay, but then don't hire me. It's just like, what?
Can't say that.
Yeah.
Like
okay, sorry.
No. But to go back to your point real quick with because at least for us, we actively seek music a lot because we choreograph to it. We need music for our warm-ups. And so, not every dance teacher goes about it the same way, not making assumptions. However, the ones that I know, the ones I have worked with, we be out here and we're just like, oh, well, what's new? Because we know we're probably going to get a bunch of students who they, at least middle, high school age, they didn't ask to be put in dance. They got dropped in. So it's like, okay, what can I do to kind of rope you in and convince you that it's going to be all right? What is the draw in for you? And then we go from there. Me teaching adults, I'm just like, what's going to keep you on track? This might be it. And it is what it is. So I think, are more likely to actively be looking for these types of things. But also, that being said, I'm like, people are also free to start listening and say, you know what, I don't care for this. And then stop listening and look for something else. Like, that's fine. No one is making you do it. But I am not offended by said music because, first of all, can we just be very clear? We're all 80s babies right now. It was 100% sampled from something we were listening to in what, high school? Was it middle school? It might have been high school. I don't think we were that raggedy in middle school, were we?
That was like maybe elementary.
I was trying to give us credit. I was trying.
Yeah, no, I like some Uncle Luke. Like that was not.
Oh yeah, Uncle Luke. Yeah, Uncle Luke
Uncle
was.
Luke,
Yeah,
Uncle Luke,
that's elementary school.
Yeah, that was elementary. So for me, the offense is like, but we were listening to that original one. So there's nothing you can say to me after that point that I'm like, oh, dang, this is too much. I felt they could have gone harder. They could have done more with it. I think, because I'm like, go big, go home. You done already said there's some hoes in this house. You had me there. You had me at that hook. You had me. So at this point, amp that thing up. Like, it's all right. It's cool.
As Kev pointed out, there was that woman who was in the early 1900s that had that with the shave them dry.
Lucille, I can't think of her last name right now.
Yeah, I posted in the chat. Yeah, that was
a chat.
She went.
Music has been out here, like we've been out here, and to be honest, movement wise, a lot of things have been out here, and so there's in the similar way that they are up in arms about this song, there's like certain movements, because I saw someone do a post that they started talking about the song, and then they started talking about and how twerking is evil and some other craziness. It went real left real fast, and I was like,
it's a dance. It's not there is no there is no classification of good or evil.
Gyration has been happening for all the centuries. Like, if you don't get out my face, like, come on.
It's evil because it makes me feel a certain way, and I don't know how to deal with it.
I was like, you're free to not look.
But okay, see, this is what I do, because transitions. Okay, being a woman, do you notice that there are some certain dances? I need to put an S on that. That's
grammar. Saving lives.
That you that have been deemed, I guess, more sexualized or what have you. That if Daryl did them, it's the classic thing of certain things are looked at differently because you as a woman with curves and whatever, it's like, oh, that's risky or that's whatever. But if he was to do a similar dance, it's looked at as something, I don't know, powerful or whatever. Is there that type of thing in dance?
Yes, 1,000,000 times yes. And I know Daryl, I definitely want you to speak from your side of it, but even something as simple as just hip circles, literally something just real simple that can be taken so quickly out of context and on the female body be labeled a certain way, that when you have a male doing not even similar but the exact same movement, now it's about power and virility and all this, and I'm like, but we do same. It's nothing's different, except for the person doing it is the only difference, and that to me is weird. And I'm not gonna lie, early on in dance, I hesitate to say it this way because it's not necessarily correct, but I'm gonna say it because I'm hungry and I've lost words. So I kind of bought into it because that's what I was taught. That they were like, oh, well, when women do it, then it means blah 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 blah. If men do it, it means blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, okay, because growing up as a musician, like my band directors, like when they would say, well, this is what this is, I was like, okay. So I assumed it was the same thing, and it was not the same thing. And as I matured as a dance artist and started actually thinking for myself, it was like, well, this is bad math. How did we get here? Like this dumb. Like, no, it's the same thing. And I think also the other way that there are movements that it's quote unquote okay for me to do, but if Daryl does them, then now he's getting labeled a certain way, and it's just like, but it's a movement.
No, and I think that I definitely agree. I even think even as a male dancer, I think there's some movement that I think people expect because you're a male, that there's this level of masculinity and of strength that you're supposed to dance with, that I think that people might be taken aback whenever that movement is a little bit softer or a little bit more delicate or graceful. And so I definitely think that, you know, there could be some negative connotations done both ways. But I do think that there are movements that, but I mean, I think it's just like us as a society, right? Like, I think if men are promiscuous, they're celebrated. If women are promiscuous, they are
condemned.
Correct. So, I think even in the dance world, it's the same thing. If a movement is suggestive, it might look really awesome for a group of guys to do it, and people are applauding it. But if a group of women do it, then it's not received well. So there's definitely that sexism that happens with movement too.
Yeah, because speaking on to that, I remember thinking more of our Caribbean cousins or people from Ireland, or those type of Afro Indian, not Indians, whatever. But it's not the word I was going for. But just like a lot of their culture is closer to our African roots than they are. So there are some things that that hasn't been stripped away from them as it has with us. So like a lot of their culture is still rooted in that dance and whatever. So it's just how they live. It's just what they do. It's not they're not, dancing to try to attract somebody. It's just how they are. And I remember seeing a video of a young black girl, and it was this, I want to say a white girl too, but they were dancing, and people were saying something about, the whole thing of like, oh, we're sexualizing, our girls too early. And it's just like, no, this is just a dance. You're the one that's sexualizing her. Like, this is just a dance. And as you said, it's because it involves hips, because it involves, a type of rhythm. Is looked at a certain way as just like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. And so I would ask, when you came across that and you got more into it and you started to have your own thoughts about it, how did you, I don't want to say combat, how did you push back against those stereotypes?
You can go first, Daryl. I just be throwing you out there. I love you though. It's fine.
But I think it's interesting because as a male dance teacher and as the person who is potentially providing the choreography, right? Like, I want to make sure, and being that I, like I teach mostly female dancers, I want to be mindful of the things that I'm asking them to do and choreographing for them. And so sometimes I tend to be a little bit more conservative. I think with my movement, especially, at the beginning of the year, I always do a hip hop with my Dance One students. And, I always try to be mindful. And I even worked with someone, not that we all established, we grew up in the 90s listening to Uncle Luke and listening to, Master P and listening to Juvenile and, taking over for the 99 into the thousands.
Right.
That makes things happen.
Yes. Every time. Clockwork.
Every time. Yes. So I will end this conversation if I heard that right now. I'd be like, pause. I'm going to be right back.
Every time.
Every time. So I say that to say that it's not like I am against that or against that type of movement, but I always want to be mindful of what I'm asking people to do, just because I know that not everybody is like me. Not everybody might feel that way about doing that movement. So I try to be very mindful. I actually just had one of my college professors wrote a book, and I just read a little bit of it. I just got it yesterday or 2 days ago. And it talks about how, don't have twerking in your choreography because, it's lewd or it's inappropriate for young dancers to do it. And I can agree with that in a context. I think, if I'm doing a show, and I have students that are 7 years old, and they're dancing to a song where obviously the lyrics in the song would suggest the reason why they're twerking. That I think all of that will sexualize that movement. But like you were saying, Carl, I don't think that movement in itself is not sexual.
It's all about context.
It's all about context, and it's all about how the viewer is seeing that. And I think that goes back into like people's understanding of dance. So I think it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I'll be living the life. It's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's where I'm at with it. Truly, what are your thoughts?
Agreed. I've 100% had like not that young, obviously. Twerking music was like it was high school. I knew good. I was on my way out, and I was like, "What you gonna do?"
Yeah.
In fairness, though, I said, "Just don't turn your back to the audience." And then it was the day of the show,
and you was like, "Well, no way, I'm sick of them."
Not only that child made her own decision, and she was like, I was like, "Oh," because I'm backstage, and I'm just like, well, we're here now. Y'all done already heard the lyrics. Sorry, my bad. Thought they were gonna follow directions the whole time. Guess not. But I know I personally am very conscious of creating movement that is that can be either considered, I would say, more neutral or more masculine. And because number one, that's what I'm more comfortable doing. I don't like doing what has been traditionally deemed as feminine. Now that I can, I'm good at it, but I just don't like to. And so I would try to push more frequently onto my students, not being pigeonholed into, well, as a female body dancing, this is what you should look like. It's like, no, this is just movement, or I am very aware that this is quote unquote masculine because it's more aggressive. However, I'm like, I associate that with femininity sometimes. I'm like, perfect example. Take a mom and somebody messes with her baby. You ain't seen aggression till you see that. Like, mess with my kid. I ain't even got hands, and I'm throwing hands at that point. It's immediate. Like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I think kind of trying to rework the narrative around how we look at these movements. But like you were saying, Daryl, it's not just within dances on a societal level. So even if within the field we're tackling it on the larger scale, there's still that battle. Because let's say by this afternoon, we had it down perfect in dance. We ain't got no more problems dealing with it. That says nothing for the grander scheme of things, nationally or globally. It would just be, oh, well, in this little pocket, they doing this over here, but this is what we are doing. So for me, it becomes, I guess I would say, I try to have dialogue with students on how they can also take some of those things that we learn through movement and transition that over to regular life. Because how else are we going to? If we don't address it, it won't change. And if we only address it from one direction, it's still not going to change. Like we can take like racism in the States. If we only tackled it through sit-ins, was that really going to change everything? No, it wasn't. So not to say that that's not an important component to it, because it is, and it has its place. It serves its own purpose. But somebody got to go out there and march. Somebody got to show up at somebody's doorstep. I'm not advocating violence. However, a swift ass whooping will get you some things done. I'm just saying, putting it out there. It works sometimes.
Spoken like a black mom.
Just saying, sometimes someone needs their ass beat. It's fine. Like, there's different ways to solve problems. Just saying.
Yeah.
Somebody need their ass beat is all I'm saying.
It's like I told you once before, you didn't seem to care. So maybe if I would put them hands on you, you'll have some tangible, more tactile.
Like, I'm giving you options.
Right.
You didn't want me to be quiet. Okay, cool. You didn't want me to just talk. Okay, cool. All right, now you're narrowing the options I got to give you. And what I'm not going to do is circle back, because you already showed me that's not going to work by itself. So we'll just keep adding. It'll be fine. Or we'll tear some shit up. I mean, either way. Either you'll listen willingly or I'll make you.
Right.
So very much movement-wise, I think similar. That as an educator, I think it's part of my responsibility to just kind of at least plant that seed of, okay, well, here's an issue that you deal with on the macro level. Okay, let's bring it down. Let's look at it. Let's dissect it. Let's learn how we can handle it here. Okay, so now how do we take this and open that back up? How do you take this outside of the studio? How do you take this into regular life? Because dance does not operate in its own little bubble. Right. It's always been political. You have a Black dancing body, that's political. You have like a Black female dancing body, that's political. You have a Black male dancing body, that's political. Everything's going to be about these here politics. So if that's going to happen, no matter what, you need to be paying attention to what is making these shifts in the politics happen, because they're always going to impact us.
Right. I think that's that's funny and interesting, because so many times a lot of people like to, I guess because of the stuff they already.
Do y'all hear my dog? He loud. I don't know what he lit. I don't know what's happening.
I can hear him now that you said something. It's like, yeah, they'll be fine.
He won't die. It's okay.
Thankfully, hopefully he won't die. So many people take stuff, and then I guess the stuff that they watch is already explicitly political. So when they watch certain media, it's like, oh, I don't want it to be political at all. But if people have to remember that the people that they're watching, that they want to entertain them, they live in that same world, and they're listening, and they're getting involved with the same politics, with the same things, sometimes stuff that you may not be listening to or being focused on. So when they are presenting it, since they are creative people, they have no choice but to bring in stuff from the outside world and express it like that. There was one thing I thought about earlier, but I didn't want to break the stride, when I thought about different movements and being feminine or masculine. And I wonder if it is just mostly our country, because when you look at other countries, they are much more free with their sexuality. They're much more free and open with different things. And I am, you know this, True. I am a geek of many things. I frequent action movies and different things. I love watching Asian martial arts movies. And when you look at them, a lot of them, when they do the kind of period pieces, and when you look at the martial arts style, a lot of those styles, even though they're all by men, does have a more fluid, not hard or masculine kind of movement to it. And I think about that, where it's like, we have here we have such rigid definitions of what's masculine and feminine. And to me, it seems like, as an outsider at least, it seems like people such as yourselves and people in maybe music or whatever kind of pushes the boundary, kind of pushes us, or at least attempt to push us away from such definitions, so that you can truly get something else out of it and not have to pigeonhole people into doing just one or two different things. And with that, I know you said you're picking up music. Is there anything else that you see that you think about? How do I want to word this? Is there any movement that's not dance that you see that inspires you to think of some type of choreography?
Yes, everything.
Okay.
Same.
Like,
Yeah.
Expound on that, please.
Okay. Like, yes. Simple answer.
Yeah, I think as improvers, as dancers, as movement creators, I think you find and see movement in everything and in anything. And so it's like any of those things can inspire movement. And I think what's awesome about that is that, we do have some of our coded, I think a lot of our coded dance movement is, in my opinion, it's all feminine, I think. You know what I mean? Like, even though nowadays, like, right, we can go through the history of like ballet and of like dances where they were very heavily male driven, but I think in the 21st century, like it's all seems to be still very female. But I think when you can look for those other contemporary, postmodern like types of dance styles and of movement, I think that they become very non-gendered, and I think that they don't necessarily have only females do this, only men do that. And so I think of like hip hop a little bit, like, especially, you probably found a lot of males that did it, but I think it's one where like the female influence in hip hop is so interesting and so nice, because there is a little bit more of that fluidity that I think the female body has. And I think then we go on to like, movement that I think naturally comes from the female body, movement that comes from the male body. And I think it's nice to see them interweave, for me at least, in my aesthetic. I'm not one to ever, and I feel like I don't dance this way either. Like, I'm not like a aggressive, like we were just talking before, aggressive dancer. And I've been told that I should dance more aggressively because I am a male. But then have also been complimented for a little bit of the fluidity in my movement, and how that's, really uncommon and hard to come by. So it's a hodgepodge.
Yeah, and I agree. I've gotten the other that I should be more feminine in my movement, and I'm just like, nigga, bye. Like, I'm not doing it. Like I don't. To me, it's not that I don't see the importance of it or the value in it, because that's not true. It's just, if this is how I naturally move, then this is how I naturally move. And if I am in a position where I'm like, oh, I'm in charge, then I'm going to do what I do naturally. Like, that's just a thing. I would say, like, looking at different cultures, what I've always found interesting is that it's not necessarily that they don't have the same or similar binaries. It's just that in dance, there's some shifts that happened as you became more westernized, we'll say. One thing that kind of came to mind is like watching West African dance forms, watching men do it, and I just feel like, yes, fluidity in this movement. Yes, being able to switch back and forth. And it's not, to me, I don't know, not well versed, bring someone on here to answer these questions. But it's not it doesn't look forced. That's what I'm looking for. It doesn't look like, oh, okay, well, this section is specifically the feminine section, and this section is specifically the male, like masculine section. It's like, this the dance. Like, this is the movement. Like, this movement says this thing. So this is how you do it. This is why you're going to do it like this, because this is what we're trying to say. And I feel like here, this is about to sound a type of way, but I don't know that there's always meaning behind the movement. I think it's just do this movement. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to look like. That's it. Versus there's a storytelling element that I would argue that many cultural dance forms, we just had someone on who her area is flamenco. And that was one of the things that came to mind while she was talking, that I'm like, it's a dance that's from the people. And like, yes, now it's more staged, we're going to say, but those roots still come from, this is how the people are moving. And I don't necessarily think I believe that the codified forms that we primarily deal with in Western dance come from the people in that same sense. Not to say they don't, but I might be saying they don't. It's something, okay, because I'm not even trying to be shady, but like, okay, well, all the folks with melanin, we always got something going on. Any bit of melanin, you got something, it's happening. I mean, it's true, but I don't even think that it's necessarily that. I think that for other people, dance serves a purpose outside of entertainment. And that is not necessarily the case here. Now, when you go into individual communities, then that's where we see, like, where hip hop is born. And like, you see something that is still coming from the people. I might have just answered a question that I've had for my own self, is why was that one of the forms that was so easily put out there to be consumed by others? And it's like, people love seeing cultural forms because it makes you feel like you're getting in on a secret. Like, if you're not from that community, it's like you're learning something about them. Now, what you choose to do with that information, how much you choose to actually learn, how much you value the knowledge that you get from what you can learn from it, that will vary. But there is something about really being a part of something that my bias is showing. I don't like ballet that much. So I'm like, I don't get that from a ballet class. Now, can I get it from maybe the person teaching it? Yes. But as an art form, no. I love modern. Do I get that from modern, really?
Yeah.
No, I don't. And as horrible as I am at hip hop, because it's a sin, it is. There is still, when I have the opportunity to take classes, there's still something in that connection with the body, connection with the history, that I only ever get that when it's a quote, I'm doing quote fingers for those who are just listening, when it's a cultural form. There, I don't know. There's something in that.
Yeah. The interesting thing too, I learned beginning of this year, which seemed like forever ago, that hip hop is being done in so many different areas outside of the United States that I think is really interesting. And there's a lot of different underground pockets of people in communities, in Arab communities, even, which it reminds me of a show that I saw in January, that people are still doing and performing hip hop, which I think is really neat, to know that it's happening happening elsewhere, and it's not like people might hear hip hop dance and think and automatically go to twerking, but it's like they're studying and doing like 1970s, 1980s, like those like Electric Boogaloo, like that kind of like hip hop that you would have seen there, which I feel like was, that's where the birth of hip hop came from. So yeah.
Question for the slow person in the class. How frustrated as people who know and study and are about that life when it comes to dance, how frustrating is it to see the other come in and be like, oh yeah, hip hop is twerking, and then once again, as we talked about earlier, just like we did that in middle school and high school. It's like we've actually moved past that. The only reason you're talking about it now is because you're talking about it as if it's something new. It's like, no, it's just new to you. We've already several years past this, several decades. I was well past my 10-year class reunion when it was brought back to the forefront, and it's still like, oh yeah, twerking, and then they're not even doing it right. It's just like, what? It's like, how frustrating is it for you to see that and to, as you say, to feel like you're getting something from history, not history, but like getting something from the culture of dance, and then it not even be right. Like, how frustrating is it to see that?
So let me tell you, it is uber frustrating to me on so many fronts that and we'll just stick to movement, because when I tell you, it applies to so much more. But just looking at movement, if the movement is on the original people's bodies, it's wrong, it's uncouth, it's not cultured. But you move it to someone else's, and all of a sudden it's avant-garde, it's cutting edge, it's the best thing ever. And I'm just like, that ain't yours though. My issue always comes in with, why can't you just give credit where it's due? If you liked it over here, just say that you liked it and that's where you got it from. Like, that's fine. You can say that. You ain't always got to like pillage. You ain't got to. That may be your history and maybe your story, but you don't always have to be like that. There are other ways, such as giving credit where credit is due. Child, there's been so many research papers that I've done that has been part of the papers, because it boggles my mind that something, and just keeping twerking as the example, something just so simple can be, number one, blown up to such proportions, but only in certain circumstances, that if I get up there and do it, then it's like, oh, well, that's whorish. That's whatever. If someone else gets up there and does it, then it's great. It's fine. It makes me angry. All right, go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, I definitely, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about with Alice, and like the kind of just like cultural misappropriation of movement and stuff. And when she was talking about flamenco and how people take that and try and say they're doing it, but then really that's not what they're doing at all, but they're selling it as such. And I think that people do that with a lot of things. I think people do that with hip hop a lot. People do that with African. I know I have no business really teaching an African class. You know what I mean? And I never do. I think if I've ever been asked to teach something, you know, I always try to go to things that I know that I've studied long enough to have some background in creating choreography for. But I will never sign up to teach an African class, because I've never studied it, and I've never studied it in a way that I could teach it in a meaningful way. So I think that, yes, I do think that there are some people who, because it's cute, because it's in, because it's happening, I think you see a lot of that on TikTok, that take it because it's popular and it's trending and it's cool, but then never really know the meaning. Or, you know, once again, people congratulate it in that realm, but then dismiss it in a different one.
It's literally that part. Just what is so wrong with just acknowledging that I like this thing that Daryl's doing? Mm-hmm. So I got it from Daryl. Mm-hmm. I'm doing it, but that I got it from him though. What is so hard about that? And especially if I'm now gaining notoriety for doing it, why can't I not give you the credit that is due? Because it's the same thing with like the hair and like the body shapes and like the lips and like, I'm sorry, to me, tanning is on that list. And I'm like, I was born with all of these things and it's problematic on my body. But this chick over here, let her get all these add-ons. Then all of a sudden she's so gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Like, I don't, it bothers me so much. Oh, that stresses me out. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry to be pissed. I'm not sorry about that part. I'm just sorry that it's okay though. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But yes. Like, Carl, did we lose you? I hope not. But oh, Daryl, I've kidnapped you.
Oh yeah.
My bad. In my anger, I didn't check on you.
Okay. It's coming back.
Okay. I think we got you. We can't hear you though.
He's muted.
Unmute. Can I do that? Look, responsible adults. It tells me I have to ask you. I don't need to ask for permission to do anything. I'm an adult. It's my show. Do what I want. I'm clicking buttons. Y'all know better. Okay. I think we lost him, but if he calls back in, hey, if not, it's fine. But I do know you have meetings.
Yes.
So I would like to take a quick moment and thank our special guest, Mr. Carl Liggins. I will be sure to post his podcast information under all of our things on the Instagram and YouTube. So you guys can also check on him. He posts so many things dealing with so many different topics, and it's just really amazing to see how he finds the connections between all of them. So that's also part of why we invited him on. If you have any questions for either Carl or myself or Daryl, feel free to leave them under the YouTube video or Instagram. Make sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe on all the places you can find us: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts. And we will be sure to continue bringing you fresh new content every week. We'll see you next week.